Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'll be showing you guys a set that I did a few days ago. Right now I'm just going in with a fine sanding band and I'm just removing the shine off of the natural nail bed so we won't get any lifting throughout our application process. I like to focus mainly around the cuticle area because that's where majority of our lifting comes from. When doing this process, you want to make sure your drill is at the lowest speed and you're not applying too much pressure so that way you're not damaging your client's natural nail bed. All right, so now I'm just going to dust off the excess dust and I'm going to apply a small amount of glue at the tip of the nail. And then I'm going to apply my tip. I don't like to add too much glue. Once I add that small amount to the tip of the nail, it'll spread throughout the tip when I add it on there. If I feel like there's still air bubbles or spaces in between where I laid my tips, then I'll just go back and add some more glue. But a little goes a long way. You don't need too much glue. And then I'm going to apply my tips. You want your tips to fit sidewall to sidewall. You don't want them too small. But if you can't find a size that matches your client's natural nail bed, then you can go with the next size up and then shape as you go. All right, so now I'm just going to cut the tips to my client's desired length. Normally, I like to go longer than what my clients ask for because I do tend to shape a lot. But towards the end, if they're still too long, then I'll just have them let me know so I can shape them down a little shorter. But right now, I'm just going to line the cuticles side by side just to make sure everything is as even as possible. All right, so now I'm just going to use that same fine sanding band just to shave the size of these tips down so we won't have too much shaping to do when we go in with our hand file. All right, so here I'm just going to go in with my 100 grit hand file just to get that shape that I'm looking for. I also like to keep my hand file as straight as possible when doing this process so I can get that perfect taper square look. All right, so now I'm just going to go in with that same fine sanding band, and I'm going to try to blend the tips in with my client's natural nail bed. Also, when doing this process, you want to make sure it's at the lowest speed. So now I'm just going to dust that off, and then I'm going to go in with my primer. This is just so that way our acrylic could adhere to the natural nail bed. So for my French, I like to place that first bead at the center where I laid my tip, and then I like to, kind of form it into place and wait for it to like stiffen up a little bit, not too much because you still want to be able to work with it. And then I'm going to drag it down a little bit to where I want my smile line to end. Also, when doing this process, I like to clean the sides off just so when I go in with the color that I'm using, that can show at the sides. But if that's not what you're looking for and you don't want that deep French, then you don't have to do this process. But I like to clean the sides off with the tip of my brush just so that way when I go in with that color, I can get that deep French effect. Alright, so now I'm just going to go in with my cuticle bead, and I'm going to lay that bead where I placed that first bead, and I'm going to gradually just drag everything down. As you can see here, my bead was a bit runny, so to prevent that, you want to lay your brush onto the napkin longer than what I had it for and clean around the cuticle area to prevent lifting as well. All right, so for my marble now, I'm just going to blend in 2 colors with each other. I'm going to lay one color and then the other color on top and just play with it and just swirl it around a little bit. When doing this process, you want to make sure it's as thin as possible as well, so it's easier to work with and it's not too thick. So I'm just going to do that and just, you know, mix the 2 colors together and just swirl it around and get that marble effect and that look that I'm looking for. All right, so now I'm just going to add some glitter acrylic to where I started and finished my marble. And then I'm going to go in with some gold foil and add it on there. While my acrylic is still wet, I like to add my foil on there so it can just stick a lot quicker. But if you feel like your acrylic is too dry, you can just go in and dip your brush in some nail liquid and then add it on to the nail where you want the foil to stick, and then add your foil. It doesn't necessarily have to be acrylic. You can use nail liquid to get your gold foil to stick. All right, so for my first bead, I'm going to go in with a medium to large bead. I'm going to place it just above where I laid my tip. And I'm going to bring everything at the center and then gradually bring everything down as it hardens up a little bit. Not too much, but if you feel like it's getting a little too dry, you just want to work with it a little faster. I like to dip my brush in monomer as well, just to soften it up a little bit, so that way it's not drying too fast. So here I'm just going to add my second bead. Normally when I'm working with long to extra long nails, I typically work with 3 or more beads. But for this bead, I'm going to apply it where I laid my first bead, and I'm going to drag everything downwards. All right, and now for my last bead, I like to place it just above where I placed that second bead, and then I'm going to gently push everything upwards and then blend everything down. When doing this process, again, you don't want to flood the cuticle area, so make sure you're very careful with this process. And then I'm going to use the tip of my brush just to clean the cuticle area so we won't get any lifting. Also, something that I like to do is I like to tilt my client's fingers to the side just to see if there's any spaces that need to be filled. If so, I'll go in with a bead and I'll place it to where it's needed. Alright, so before filling in my French, I like to go in with my 100 grit hand file just to reshape the smile line to my liking. Alright, so now I'm just going to encapsulate this nail design with clear acrylic. You do have to encapsulate any design that you do with loose glitter or whatever design you're doing, only because once you go in to drill, you don't want that design to come off. So encapsulating it with clear acrylic will get that design to stay in place. Alright, so now I'm just going to go in with my 100 grit hand file just to get that shape back. I like to hold my client's fingers as tightly as possible when doing this process, just so that way I'm not hurting them. But when doing this process, you want to make sure you're holding your hand file as straight as possible, so that way you can get that perfect shape that you're looking for. So now I'm just going to go in with my fine carbide bit just to smooth everything out. I like to focus around the cuticle area just to make sure I didn't leave any leftover acrylic onto the skin. And I'm going to focus on the base area just to smooth everything out. Another trick that I like to do is I like to tilt my client's fingers to the side just to see if there's any areas that's thicker than the other or bumpier than the other, just so I can know which area to focus on. Alright, so now I'm going to go in with my buffer just to smooth out the nail so it's ready for top coat or gel polish, whatever you choose to use. This just removes any specks that might have gotten left behind when I was e-filing. Alright, so now I'm just going to go in with my Swarovski glue just to get my stones to stick. Another trick that I like to do is I like to tilt my client's finger upside down just to see if my stones are completely even and not crooked. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in with my gel top coat. A little goes a long way. You don't have to apply too much because once you apply too much, it tends to run off to the side and you could possibly lose your shape once you cure it under the lamp. Alright, so before curing my client's hands under the lamp, I like to clean the sides off with my finger just so that way I don't lose my shape in case any gel top coat rolled over to the side. Alright, so now I'm just going to go in with some cuticle oil and rub it in. And that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, turn on your post notification bells on, and I'll see you guys in the next one.